This video will review kind of how to set up a Schoology course, in particular the Gradebook. So I've got a fake Schoology course here that I added Patrick Sedney to, so he's going to be our test student here. So you would obviously have more students in the student column, and then if you want to actually start setting up the Gradebook, you go into Grade Setup. So right now mine's just showing marking period 1 because it's a test, it's a fake class. So the first thing to do would be to add categories because the categories will be whatever different types of assignments you're assigning. So for instance, in this fake class, I will have homework, and then you have the choice of if you want to go by total points or percentage, and if you want to drop the lowest 1, 2, 3, or 4 homework. So I'll say I want to drop the lowest 1 homework assignment. Then I can add another category. Let's say it is tests. And again, we'll go total points, but I'm not going to drop 1. And then we'll have lab reports. Total points, not going to drop any of those. So right now, if we're not weighting the categories, then each of these 3 would be weighted equally, which is what happens when you turn on weight categories. But if I want homework to be worth a lot less than tests, I can start to manipulate these weights, right? If I change this to 200, for instance, now that is worth 50%, and this is 25% and 25%. So going back to the Gradebook, for Mr. Sedney right now, nothing shows up still because I haven't actually assigned anything for him. So if I went into materials for his course or this fake course, I would add a folder, and I'm going to call that folder assignments. I generally call it assignments rather than homework or anything like that because it will have lab reports, homework, quizzes, tests, everything gets put in there. Also, starting it with an A generally means that it can stay up at the top of choices when you're choosing where to add things. So I'm going to add an assignment. I'm not selecting test or quiz because if you select add a test or quiz, that actually creates an online test or quiz. I know there's plenty of teachers here in the middle school that use those online tests or quizzes. Students can log into Schoology and take their test through the website. It often will auto-grade things if you've got it set up for multiple choice or fill in the blank. So that's a great resource, but a different conversation. We just want to add an assignment at this point that will post it to the student calendar. So one of the things when adding any assignment is we actually want to title the assignment of what it is, right? So if it is a quiz on, let's say this is a fake science class, on fake science unit 1, I can come down here then, and I've got a few different options. The reason, first of all, the reason that we are titling this is so that when other teachers use workload planning over here, we can see what is due on specific days of the week. And I know if I didn't have quiz here, I don't know if fake science unit 1 is a homework assignment, a test, a quiz, or a lab report, for instance. So it's helpful to post, is it a quiz, is it an HW, a homework, a test, what it is, so that not only students can tell, but other teachers can see when they use the workload planning function. So one of the first things that I always do is I turn off submissions. If I'm not asking students to turn something in through Schoology, I shut that off. The reason for that is twofold. One, if I keep that on, it's going to just kind of keep pinging me and the students when they're late, when their work is supposedly late. Of course, since they weren't supposed to submit the quiz through Schoology, nothing's actually late, so it would just be giving me a false reading there, essentially. I also like to turn off comments, just so that the students aren't chatting back and forth on each individual assignment. You'll find that you get emails every time somebody makes a comment, so that can get old. Then if I click on category, I've got the 3 different categories that I created. Since this is a quiz, I guess I'm just putting it into tests, and I would weight it smaller than I would a test, for instance. Then let's say this quiz is for tomorrow, right? If the quiz is due the 26th, I'm selecting the 26th for that assignment, and then I'm going to go create. I'm going to add one more just so we can see it. I'm going to add an assignment. It's a homework assignment, so I might title it HW, and then fake problem set. It's homework, will be worth 5 points. Turn off submissions, turn off comments, homework, due date, Friday. If I also didn't turn off submissions, there would be a time that would show up here. And I know there was a conversation in our faculty meetings about what time you want things due. Certain teachers have them due right at 8:15. That way students show up to school with their work all complete, and if it's not done by the time they walk in the door, then it's late. The one issue with that, and you can choose which way you want to approach it, is if you do that, it does not allow students to use their study halls. One might argue that their study halls are not for doing homework due that day, but are intended for studying for upcoming quizzes and tests or doing homework that is due later in the week. So you might not want to allow them the option of using a study hall that they have in the day. Or you might want to. It's up to you what time you have that due. Do it 8:15, do it midnight, or is it due the time that your class starts that day? We're going to create one last one. So if I go into the gradebook now, what we'll see are 2 blanks here for the quiz and for the homework. If Mr. Sedney scored a 19 out of 20, and he did 4 of the 5 problems, right click out of there, it's calculating his marking period 1 grade right here. And that's going to be based on the fact that tests, if you can remember our grade setup, our tests were 50% of the grade, whereas homework was only 25% of the grade. So that small homework score didn't really change Mr. Sedney's grade as of right now. There are other functions here that we can take a look at. So workload planning is helpful for when you're assigning a long-term assignment like a quiz or a test. So Mr. Sedney right now, man, no homework for him coming up. So any day this week would be a good day to assign a quiz or test for him because there's nothing popping up. What we can see by these color-coded items here are that if there were 4 or more items for him due on Friday, Friday would be a red day. If there was only 2 items due on Thursday, it would be a yellow day. What you can also do is when those assignments pop up, you can click on them and view what they are, right? Are they just homework assignments that we're not that worried about, or are they big quizzes and tests and we could find another day to assign that fake science test? If we go back into Gradebook, we can also go to Print Reports and select Mr. Sedney. We obviously can select more students if there were more, and generate a report about his grade so far. This is helpful if you're going to a meeting about a student. It'll list out not just how they're doing in homework in general, but also how they did on each individual homework assignment. So that is a useful feature. So just to summarize for this, when you're setting up your gradebook, first choose what your categories will be, and also if you will be going off of points or off of a percentage for those categories. You can manipulate within that. And then for the assignments, make sure that in the title you are saying if it's a homework, quiz, or test. That way when other teachers are using the workload planning, they are able to tell what those different assignments are. And make sure that you decide, first of all, if you want to allow and turn on submissions, but also if you are doing submissions, what time that assignment is due. I think it automatically sets up 11:59. It's your choice how you set up that time of the submission if you have that turned on at all.